Thailand seems to have an extra fascination with decommissioned aircraft. There are aircraft scattered all over the country. Some are converted into cafes, some are connected with hotels. You'll find some at markets and shopping centres, and some are just static displays that are sort of randomly placed in really unexpected places. Back in 2023, whilst I was in Sydney, I came across a chat group talking about a mysterious 747 jumbo abandoned at an old airfield not far from a home we'd just purchased earlier in the year in Hua Hin. Someone claiming to have seen a 747 in a random field. Other people on the chat had been to the site and said that the post was either fake or not correct. However, crucially, one person in the chat said it was there and commented it was near a river behind some trees, and stated they needed to look harder and down the end of the runway because the trees obscured the plane. At the time, the location description was very vague, but I narrowed it down to Pran Buri airfield and stupidly imagined that the plane must have been flown in for its last flight before being abandoned at the airfield. I searched Google Maps, but there was no sign of the plane anywhere near the airfield or the surrounding area. However, I could see the airfield buildings that matched the photos in the group chat, so I knew I had the right place. In my mind, the aircraft must be somewhere within the taxiing distance of the runway. Other jumbos had been landed at small airfields or museums, so it seemed plausible at the time, but it turns out that the Pran Buri runway is only around 800 metres long, and the shortest recorded landing for a 747 was 1,280 metres. They normally need 1,800 metres to 2,000 metres. So the landing at this airport was impossible. My interest was sparked even further when other web links I clicked on identified the plane as HS-TGP with the nickname Thepprasit. And I remembered asking Lee when we were boarding the Thai Airways flight what the Thai name of the aircraft we were boarding meant. At a quick glance, I read it as therapist, when in fact it's Thepprasit. Therapist actually could have been a good name to describe what the aircraft could do for a lot of people by jetting them off on holiday. Lee said that Thepprasit meant something to the effect of blessed by God, so I think that's a better name for a plane no matter what flight you're on. But it was just something that stuck in my mind. It turns out that this 747 is special. It served as a royal and diplomatic transport, and during that period it was painted up in the original classic royal barge livery, and the king had flown on this aircraft. A few months later, when we got back to Hua Hin, we got back in the car and went looking for the Phantom Jet. Was it in fact a real thing or just another online troll? So we headed to the airfield to find out. We found the airfield buildings, however, they were now just skeletons. The Google image showed them as intact, and the chat photos showed photos inside the buildings with fully intact rooms with maps on the wall and airport-related items inside. On our first visit, the main runway was mainly paved. Now it's mostly been removed. The taxiways are still intact, but becoming more and more overgrown. I can see why people in the chat were saying that the 747 reports were false. There's no sign of any aircraft parts. The airfield buildings were basically gone, and it would be hard to hide something as large as a 747 in open ground. We only continued on because of a comment I had seen about going to the end of the airfield and looking behind the trees, and at that point I still hadn't seen the river that was mentioned. We were very close to the end of the airfield, and it was looking more and more like that either the report was wrong or that the plane had already been removed. I was about to turn around when we got a slight glimpse of a white shape through the trees, and then suddenly the tail became visible. The aircraft was on the opposite side of the river from the airfield, which made me question how it got there. I flew one of my drones across to take a look, and I was able to see that it would have been impossible for the plane to have flown into the airfield and parked where it was. Just a small amount of elevation enabled you to see the massive structure clearly from a long way away, but at ground level it was completely obscured. HS-TGP's first flight was on the 11th of November 1994, and it was withdrawn from use on the 26th of February 2020, so it gave the airline about 25 years of service. I couldn't help wonder where this plane had flown and how many passengers it had brought joy to. The landing gear had been mounted on concrete pads, and it appeared to have a spare tail section lying on the ground towards the rear of the aircraft. We used to fly from Sydney to Thailand around 3 or 4 times a year, and that route was serviced by the older 747s, which were dated compared to the newer aircraft. The cabin was showing its age back then. The upper deck overhead lockers could not fit standard carry-on luggage. The business class seats couldn't lie flat and the screens were a bit dated and small. But for years, it would have been modern and at the high end of travel. Over the years, this plane has had 3 different liveries. It started off in the white and orchid livery. This is an actual picture of the plane in 1996, superimposed over today's location. It was refinished in the retro classic Thai Royal Barge livery. This is the actual plane in 2010. The third and final livery for this aircraft was the Thai Contemporary design. Again, this is the actual plane in 2017. I thought it was interesting that the only thing that remained the same the entire time was the Thai flag on the top of the tail. Even when it was stripped of all of its colour, the Thai flag remained. 4 months after first verifying the plane's existence, we went back and met the owner on site. He's a very friendly and easygoing guy and wants to develop and share the site. He was kind enough to reveal the missing pieces of the jigsaw puzzle and explain to us that the aircraft was last landed over near Rayong, near Pattaya, and then cut up into 22 manageable sections and semi-trailered the 380 kilometres around to his land in Pran Buri, and then it took a further 6 months to reassemble it. Over the last 2 years, the existence and location of the plane has become more common knowledge, and a few YouTubers have done various stories about the plane with varying amounts of accuracy. Some claiming that they discovered an abandoned 747 in the jungle. Well, it's not in the jungle and it's not abandoned. So the owner is looking for partners to develop the site into a cafe, hotel, or an attraction. Recently, a YouTuber gained access to the aircraft and, obviously not knowing you never walk on the wing flaps, fell through one of the flaps and damaged the aircraft. The owner was away in Phuket at the time, and weeks later the wing is still open to the elements. One of the other issues that the owner faces is trespassers. He noted that theft of parts has already occurred, and he's made a plea to say to people, please, if the gate is shut, don't just walk around the gate and don't enter the site. Large aircraft can be fascinating, and this one has a special history.
Sips of four sip สวยงามบินไปไกลชื่อว่าเทพประสิทธิ์ที่ใครๆก็รู้ด้วยคลื่นลมพระเจ้าให้ความสำเร็จรู้บินรับพระเจ้าลานเธอทั่วทุกแดนอย่างนุ่มนวลในฟ้าที่แสนงดงามโอ้วันนั้นราชินีแห่งท้องฟ้าท่านมีชื่อเสียงจากเสือพระยุคบินข้ามโลกในทุกฤดูกาลตอนนี้นั่งอยู่ในทุ่งหญ้าลาเลนปีที่ผ่านมารู้ซึ้งถึงการเดินทางเจออากาศหนาวที่เคยทำให้หวั่นตอนนี้ขอบฟ้าไม่มีใครมองท่ามกลางแดดร้อนอ่อนโยนกลางฝั่งไทยความทรงจำกลับมาในคืนยาววันนั้นราชินีแห่งท้องฟ้าท่านมีชื่อเสียงจากเสือพระยุคบินข้ามโลกในทุกฤดูกาลตอนนี้นั่งอยู่ในทุ่งหญ้าลาเลนราวกับว่าเทพเจ้าได้มอบความสงบในบรรยากาศแสนสบายที่คู่ควรอดีตที่กลับมาในหัวใจก่อนที่เวลาจะ เป็นของเรา ผู้คนยังคงจดจำเรื่องราวของราชินีในฟ้าที่ไม่เคยห่างหาย บินบนความรักของคนทั้งโลก แต่ตอนนี้นั่งอยู่เดียวในทุ่งหญ้าเย็น อากาศแห้งแต่ใจไม่ถอยสายลมซึ่งอบอุ่นก็ยังคงรอ ความทรงจำและเสียงเพลงยังคงอยู่ ราชินีที่เคยบินในฟ้ากว้างอวดชัด
So for us, this was an interesting journey, finding a 747 that we had flown on maybe more than once, now retired in a field not far from our new home where we are also retiring, then accidentally finding out that it had a famous royal connection and a special place in Thai airline history. I hope the owner has success in finding some development partners and will be keeping you updated on the developments. I will be doing at least 2, maybe 3 more stories on other aircraft that we've already come across in our travels around Thailand. So subscribe to see those future stories. I have loads of footage already. If you want to visit responsibly, then look for Pran Buri South Airfield on Google to see the plane from across the river, or go to Highway 3168 to find the entrance to the field, but only if the gates open. I noticed last visit that there's also a charter boat showing people the plane from the river also. At some point, Google Maps may update and you'll see the plane on that, but at the moment, they're still not there. Thanks for watching. If you found it interesting, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos, subscribe to the channel and we'll be back with more later.
เมื่อก่อนวันวานในฟ้ากว้างใหญ่ 10 สวยงามบินไปไกล ชื่อว่าเทพประสิทธิ์ที่ใครๆ